But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, the women came to Jesus' tomb, taking the spices that they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed by this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, but the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he told you, while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again?" Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the other women with them, who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to the men an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in. He saw the linen cloths by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Before I get to the sermon, I have a few things. One is that there's photographers in the church today because, they follow me around everywhere. The paparazzi, you can't do anything but... No. Kevin and Emily are here to take pictures of you after worship, and so while they were here, we're like, take some pictures, please, while we have this beautiful sanctuary set up this way. So that's the first thing. There will be a chance for them to take your family pictures afterwards out in the atrium. The other thing is that anthem that you just heard, that was a world premiere of a song by our very own Michael Conley. Not everybody has the colleagues I do. I'm very blessed. So, a few weeks ago, I got to go to the Calvary Nursery School. I was invited to talk with the children about Easter. Now, getting to visit the nursery school is one of my favorite gigs as a pastor, but how do you explain resurrection to a 3-year-old? Also, I recognize not all of the children in the nursery school come from Christian households, and I want to be respectful of other faith traditions in the telling of our story. And I really did not want to freak the children out with ideas of zombie Jesus rising from the tomb, right? Let's face it, if you don't already know the story, it is not an easy story to understand. There was a cartoon in the New Yorker this past week, and it showed Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper. Jesus points to the things on the table and says, "So this bread is my body, the wine is my blood, and the chocolate bunny is a fun springtime treat." And that might be a fair assessment of my time with the nursery school kids. There's far more conversation about the Easter bunny than about Jesus. But in truth, I think resurrection is as complicated for us to understand as it is for 3-year-olds. Death, we understand. We don't like it, but we understand it, and we see it around us. But life after death, it's a little trickier. Give me the Easter bunny, please. We can sympathize with the women who went to the tomb that morning because they went with supplies to anoint a dead body. If they'd understood the resurrection, they would have taken Jesus a change of clothes and a sandwich. But they get to the tomb to do the faithful work of caring for the body of their loved one, their rabbi, their friend. But the tomb is open and the body is gone. Now, I stopped watching horror movies many years ago once I realized I was a grown-up and I didn't have to see terrifying movies anymore. But in my teenage years, I do remember watching those movies and always yelling at the screen, "Don't go into the cemetery alone at night. Nothing good happens there." And it's what I want to say to the women. Of course they're terrified at the sight of an empty tomb. Of course they're worried about grave robbers. And then the angels pop up next to the empty tomb in their dazzling outfits, terrifying them even more. Normally, when angels appear to people in Scripture, what do they say? Do not be afraid. No, they didn't even say that. They just said, why do you look for the living among the dead? I don't find that a very helpful question. What do they even mean when they say that? Luke says, why did you look for the living among the dead? He is not here. He is risen. Remember how he told you while he was in Galilee that the Son of Man must be handed over to sinners and be crucified and on the third day rise again? The angels remind the women that Jesus had been trying to help give them a framework for this so they could understand resurrection. He did it while he was still alive. He told them he would be handed over to Rome. He told them he was going to be crucified and rise again on the third day. As we talked about last week on Palm Sunday, the people wanted Jesus to overthrow Rome and show up in military power. And Jesus wanted people to understand the ways of peace. The angel reminds the people that they are still looking for Jesus in all the wrong places. Jesus is never found cozying up to Caesar. He's not found amassing arms for a military takeover. He's not even found in his tomb. Why do you look for the living among the dead? Because we still believe in death. We still experience it. We still see people trafficking in it and threatening us with it. It's hard enough to believe that Jesus didn't want power or wealth or military victory because that's what we want most of the time. But to believe that Jesus defeats even death? Why do you look for the living among the dead? The angels are not gaslighting the women. They aren't pretending Jesus did not just die a horrible, state-sanctioned, unjust death on a cross. Jesus died. The angels are not claiming he didn't. Resurrection is not pretending that death isn't real, that it doesn't hurt us deep in our souls. Being Christian, being resurrection people is not making a claim that if you follow Jesus, everything in your life will work out perfectly and you'll have prosperity and nothing but blue skies. By asking the question, the angels are letting the women know that death is not the ending they thought it was. But life after death doesn't return to exactly what it was before. Jesus does not move back into his apartment and get back to his job and hang out with his disciples. There will be accounts of people encountering Jesus after the resurrection, but it takes them a minute to recognize who he is. Even Jesus is changed by death. Easter takes place in springtime, which used to mean more to me when I lived in places that were not perpetually spring-like. After a long winter in snowy, cold, dark places, you welcome the signs of new life in spring differently than I do living here. But it is not a coincidence that today our sanctuary is filled with beautiful flowers. They are a sign of new life. They are a reminder that when the earth feels barren and empty, there are seeds planted. There are bulbs waiting to break forth into new life. But the new life of resurrection is not a return of what we've known before. And if you planted a tulip bulb and what sprung up in the soil instead was a sequoia, that might be a better image for Easter, because life after death is different. Maybe you have an experience of it in your own life, when you were at an ending, when you could not return to where you had been before. My experience with life after death is the reason I became a pastor. And it doesn't feel as dramatic as death to me now, 35 years later, but at the time, it was an ending. And there was grief and anxiety and loss. I was in college and I was a good student. I even got up on Sunday mornings and went to church. And I still somehow managed to get pregnant at age 19. And that is not what's supposed to happen to girls who get up and go to church on Sunday mornings. It is almost hard for me to remember now how that felt as a death. But at the time, I thought my life was over. I was worried my family might disown me. I was afraid I wasn't going to get to finish college or have the career I was dreaming of. A lot of dreams died in those early days for the future I thought I was supposed to have. I had an image of myself that died then too. My image as a good person who did the right things, so I didn't really need God and I didn't really need help from anybody else. That image of me died in those days. That image of me as a lone ranger, pulling myself up by my own proverbial bootstraps, an island to myself. I'm okay that that died, actually. But day by day, through that time, people helped me turn away from the brick wall of ending that seemed to be standing in front of me, and they guided me down different paths. Day by day, God put possibility where I only saw grief. Day by day, my community and my church cared for me, teaching me the valuable lesson of community and the gift that comes when you accept help. I placed my son for adoption, and in a miracle for which I cannot say alleluia enough, I have been in his life the whole way through. And I've seen him graduate from high school and college. I was at his wedding. I've been telling this story for 35 years, and I still cry. Okay. I get to see him as a father to my granddaughter. And this fall, I happened to be in Dallas, where he lives. I was there for a church meeting when his wife went into labor, and I got to meet my grandson in the hospital the morning after he was born. I promise you, in 1989, when I gave him to another family, there was no possibility or even moment to dream of the goodness that has happened since. It never occurred to me I might someday have a relationship with him, let alone with my grandchildren. It was as far-fetched as life after an empty tomb. Why do we look for the living among the dead? Maybe it's because we lack imagination for goodness. Or maybe we worry we are unworthy for the goodness of God. I certainly did not feel deserving of God's grace and love in that moment when I thought I had destroyed everything. But that's the thing about the grace of God. We don't earn it. We cannot control it. We can only receive it. And it searches us out in moments of joy and contentment, in moments of grief and loss. There is no place that the love of God will not go to find us, even to the tombs of our lives. So why do we stay standing by the tombs looking for the living among the dead? After the angels speak with the women, we're told that they remembered Jesus' words, and the women returning from the tomb told all of this to the 11 and the rest. Like the women at the tomb who went back to tell their friends, we're called to tell people about Jesus, about his love that is stronger than even death. Like the women at the tomb, we want people to know that what feels like an ending for us does not mean that God is finished telling our story. As we live into this Easter season, I invite you to notice when the death and the pain of the world make you forget to leave your tombs, when your imagination forgets to believe impossible things, and when your heart protects itself from the possibility of life after it has known loss and death. In these days, especially in these days, the world needs to know the depth and the height and the breadth of God's love. So leave your tombs to share the remarkable news that nothing can separate us from the love of God, not even death. Alleluia and amen.